Hey guys, welcome back to the studio for another lesson. This week, I'm going to show you how you can use a simple sequence to play over both static chords and through chord changes. We'll start off by learning the sequence in a couple of different chord qualities across the whole register of the guitar. Then we'll work on application by playing it in some phrases over a 2-5-1 so you can see how it works in motion and how we can mix it with other elements of improvisation I've taught you in the past. Finally, we'll go through a few examples of how the sequence works when we're playing it through longer sets of chord changes and where we need to adapt to the harmony as we go. You guys ready? Let's get started. I mentioned before that the notes in our lines don't always need to match the chord changes exactly one-to-one. What's really important is where we land and how we weave a line through a set of changes to arrive at that landing point, or resolution. To this end, I think practicing different sequences through scale qualities can be super helpful. The sequence I'm going to show you in just a second is built around a pretty simple idea. Off each note in the scale, we're going to go up a triad and then resolve down a step. On the way back down, we'll do the same thing, but instead of going up to the next note in the scale, we'll drop down. Here's the sequence in one octave, played on the beat for you to take a look at now. Like I said, it's a pretty simple idea, but it's one that's got a lot of legs to it. Now let's take this one step further by playing it across the entire register of the guitar. Since we're in C major, that means I can start out on the low E and play the sequence up 3 octaves to my highest comfortable C. On the way back, I'll play it all the way down to the low E, but then go back up to C so I keep the sound of the tonic in my ears. Here's that exercise for you to check out now. Doing this on the beat is a great technical study, and it's perfectly usable when you're improvising, but you'll typically hear the bebop masters play this sort of thing off the beat. In this next exercise, we're just going to shift everything forward 1/8 note and start off the end of 1. When we do this, we'll get some really cool syncopated sounds and a structure that's reminiscent of what happens when we play pivot arpeggios. Here, take a look at the exercise and you'll see what I mean. We can get even more mileage out of this simple idea by changing the quality of the scale that we're playing it through. In the PDF for today's lesson, I've written these exercises out for you guys in the dominant scale and the melodic minor, so you can see how simple it is to practice the sequence through other qualities and find different applications to chord changes in them. Before we move on to the next section, I want to show you guys how it sounds when we apply this sequence to one of Barry Harris's scales of chords. In this next exercise, we'll run the pattern through the major 6 diminished scale. Now, the structure is going to be exactly the same. We'll go up a triad and then down a step. However, since this is an 8-note scale, we're going to get some funny sounding triads in a few cases. Now check out the exercise and you'll see what I mean. I think this is a really cool sound that's super usable over tons of different chord changes. I'd encourage you to try this out using the substitution principles we've gone over in the past when we're using Barry's different scales of chords. In the PDF for today's lesson, you'll find this exercise written out for minor 6 diminished and dominant 7 diminished as well. For now, let's move on and see how we can apply this idea to some phrases we can play over 2/5. Just like with everything we do here at the studio, it's really important that we apply this concept to playing lines over changes once we're comfortable and have it in our fingers. To help you guys out with this, I prepared a few phrases over a 2/5 in C major that make liberal use of this sequence we've been practicing today. And keep in mind, this is just another melodic device we've got in our toolkit, so be careful not to overuse it. We should also try to find places where we can pop out of the pattern and play some more typical bebop language. Here's the first phrase for an idea of how that might sound. By mixing the pattern in with some pivot arpeggios, extra half steps, and enclosures, we can come up with some great lines that really give that sense of bobbing and weaving through the changes. Here's another example for you to check out now. In that one, I decided to use more of the pattern and then break up the upward motion by using some Barry Harris chromatic scale over the dominant chord to get me back down to a chord tone of the tonic. In this next one, let's see what it sounds like if we use an off-the-beat pivot and then take the pattern down through the scale before finishing up the line. Here's that phrase for you to check out now. In the PDF for today's lesson, there's 3 more phrases like this to give you guys some more ideas of how you can apply this type of pattern-oriented playing to your solos. For today, though, we'll wrap things up by seeing how we can apply this sequence-based approach to a couple of different sets of chord changes from standard tunes. Before we do that, though, I need to give a quick shout-out to TRUEFIRE.com for supporting the channel. TRUEFIRE is an online lesson library that's host to literally thousands of courses on a wide range of musical topics from some really amazing artists and educators, including yours truly. My second course, Exploring Bebop Blues, is available on TRUEFIRE now. In this course, I'll explain and demonstrate an essential vocabulary of harmonic and melodic techniques and creative concepts. Using TRUEFIRE's learning tools, we'll practice and play through 10 etudes exploring different approaches for playing over commonly encountered bebop blues feels, tempos, and changes. We'll start with a typical jazz blues progression and then work our way up to applying more expressive approaches for playing over more sophisticated changes like the bird blues. As you play through all 10 etudes, you'll learn many essential characteristic melodic lines and how to approach bebop's many rhythmic complexities. The link to the course is in the description of this video. Also, if you've ever wanted to grab a private lesson with me, I've got a new option available for you. I'm now accepting video exchange students through TRUEFIRE as well. That link can also be found down in the description. For now, let's get back to today's lesson and check out how to go about applying the pattern we've been working out to some standard chord changes. Once you're reasonably comfortable playing through the pattern in one scale quality, you should try moving it through a set of chord changes and adapting it to the harmony as you go. To help you guys out with this, I've prepared a couple of examples of how this works over the changes to 2 different standards. First up, let's take a look at how this approach can be applied to the A section from Donna Lee. Remember, the sequence is really just a jumping off point to get an improvised line moving. You should experiment with popping out of the pattern, like I did in that example, and mixing it with other elements that we've covered here in the past. Let's check out one more example before we wrap things up for today. This time, we'll play the sequence over the changes to the tune Nobody Else But Me. Check out how that sounds now. thanks so much for sticking around all the way to the end of today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the lesson. Practicing sequences like this over chord changes is a super effective way of playing lines that don't always need to adhere to just the notes in the chord. As always, if you did find today's lesson helpful, make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications too. If you want to get access to the PDF for today's lesson, you can grab that, along with the whole back catalog for all the videos on the channel for as little as $10 a month over at my Patreon page, or by just hitting the join button right here on YouTube. A special thanks goes out to Ron Maestas, Alf Collins, Juan Domingue, and Vince for being studio fans. I really appreciate the support. An extra special thanks is due to these studio members for their support as well. T. Colston, Adam Wright, Ronan Torito, Tom Gates, Andrew McBride, Aldo Fonseca, Nikita Sketchkov, Michael M., Jason Paul Dubois, Ron Askew, Pete Lang, Lawrence Beer, Johnny Phillips, Raymond DeGloro, James Seabury, Bruce Wood, Larry G., Bill Benfield, Benjamin Dockstader, Sean Lepore, Severus Guo, Paul George, Stephen White, Salkai Zoltan, Apollos Jolivert, Justin Fisher, Milan de Kaiser, Tyler Kosarek, David Wertman, Michael LeBroy, Todd Stupnik, Zé Suarez, Gia Theobald, Artie Sanchez, Louis Rosen, Stephen Prager, Aaron Walters, Sgemster, Everton Armstrong, Stephen Schwartz, Max Irwin, Patrick Caron, David Zuckerbraun, and PH. An extra special shout out to Jazz Luminaire patron Bill Jacob. Thank you guys all so much for your continued support. I'm David Shore, and thanks again for hanging with me at the studio today. I'll see you guys next time.